Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is my hobby YouTube channel, and on this channel I like to chat about makeup and fashion related topics. Those are my two favorite things to chat about. When it comes to makeup, I love a good eyeshadow palette. I love doing shop my stashes and getting use out of my products. And I also review quite a lot of Essence and Catrice products over here as well. So I do 3 different videos a week. So if you'd like to stay tuned for more, then please be my guest. But today we're talking eyeshadow palettes because I thought that what could be really fun for the fall season is to rank all of my jewel toned eyeshadow palettes. Now, in case you're new here, I have been doing this every single month where I take a, let's say, a color story, and I group all of those palettes together and then I rank them. So I've already done pastels and rainbow palettes. I've done, I think, what else did I do? I did a couple of other things. My purple palettes, my blue-green palettes. I plan on doing cool tones this year, next month, and also my rosy mauve tone palettes. So those are also coming up. And now that I'm sitting down to film this video, I was like, maybe I should also do a ranking with my warm tones, and I should do a ranking with my grungy color stories. So maybe I should just keep doing this series in 2022 and do some of these other these other color stories as well. So let me know in a comment down below if that's what you're interested in. But for now, I'm just going to get to these jewel toned eyeshadow palettes that I've picked from my collection, and I'm going to be ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite jewel tone palettes. Let's get started. I have 18 palettes here in total, and I have to say I do have a little bit more than 18 because there are a couple of spots where I've grouped certain palettes together and I'm sort of ranking them as one little family. And I have to be very, very honest here as well that a lot of the palettes that I'm going to be showing you today are going to be hard to find, because I found as I was going through my entire eyeshadow palette collection looking for jewel toned eyeshadow palettes that really in recent years we haven't really gotten a lot of really good jewel toned eyeshadow palettes. So a lot of these were limited edition, you can no longer get, and that I know is not something that a lot of people like to see, because I know a lot of people want to see things they can actually buy. However, I also like to just chat about makeup and chat about the things that I personally have. And I think that very often if you were to look into like indie singles, or if you were to look into what brands are currently doing, you can also be on the lookout for things that might be right for you. And I kind of do these videos with that in mind. So it's not as if all 18 palettes that I'm going to be showing you today are still very widely available. I think about 75% of these palettes are going to be really, really difficult to buy. So that's just something that you're gonna have to know. So this is just a shout out to all of the makeup brands out there. Please give us some more jewel toned eyeshadow palettes, because you don't do enough of them, at least not in the past like 2 or 3 years or so. So that's definitely something that is lacking in the makeup department at the moment, I feel. So a lot of these are also sometimes quite old, I'm not gonna lie. So let me just get to these palettes and get to this ranking. Number 18 would be this guy, the Dominique Cosmetics Celestial Storm palette. Now this palette is not a bad palette, none of these are, yeah? They are all stunning, they all have something going for them, but the reason why I'm ranking this in the last spot is simply because this color story looks a lot more interesting than what you end up being able to play around with. And we'll talk color stories in a minute when we get to some of my other jewel tone palettes, but I personally definitely struggled like even defining what I feel a jewel tone palette is, because not every grungy eyeshadow palette in my collection is a jewel toned one. So maybe you feel there are certain missing that you would feel are a jewel toned one that you know I own. However, these were the ones that I selected, and I feel that this does have these like lovely, like more jewel toned vibrant shades on this side. However, my problem with this palette is that the quality of the shades in the palette just isn't very consistent. I got some stunning looks out of this like warm tone section here, but the more I moved towards this side of the palette, the harder pressed the shadows became and the harder they became to work with. Were these bad shadows? Not at all. But that's why this does go into the number 18 spot, because I feel that this is definitely now on the chopping block if I were to declutter my eyeshadow palette collection today, this would definitely go. In the number 17 spot, I would want to rank this guy. This is the Viseart Dark Edit, and I only just recently finished using this, so I definitely had a bit of a try, and actually one of the palettes I'll be ranking today is also on my face today. But this is what the Dark Edit looks like, and I kind of bought this because Angelica Newquist raves about this a lot. However, I didn't like the mattes in this at all, and you get 8 mattes. So I wasn't a huge fan. I had some trouble blending these. I didn't love them, and it's just not the same Viseart formula that I feel I have in my Viseart Étendue, Violette Étendue I should say, or in the Midsummer, or in the Petite Pro 3. I just didn't feel this was as perfect as those ones were, and even though I do like the color story in here, so this is not necessarily like already on the chopping block or anything, but I do think that what's going to happen to this palette is that I will probably just keep a couple of the shades from this palette and take them out because these pans are removable, and stick them into some of my other Viseart palettes that have a similar sized pan, and then just get rid of this because I definitely didn't like all of these. And it does have some lovely like purples and some greens, but I felt it wasn't perfect. So that's why the Dark Edit gets to go at the bottom of this ranking. And here I guess we get to a palette that you could argue isn't very jewel toned, but I wanted to feature the Natasha Denona Lila in here. Now I made this more jewel toned because I added the gold from the gold palette into this color story, and I feel that makes it more jewel toned. However, you don't get the greens or the blues that you often find also in jewel tone palettes. So I do have a couple of palettes here today where I feel the jewel tone spectrum isn't that wide of a variety. So with this, I would have liked more jewel tones to make this more jewel toned, or more purples to make it more purple toned. But really what you get here is a neutral tone palette with some pops of color. That's really what you get. And the Lila is one of my least favorite Natasha Denona palettes that I own. It was the first one that I got, and it actually kind of put me off the brand for a little bit, and that's why this gets to go into the number 16 spot, because I wasn't a fan. Number 15 is going to be a grouping, and that's all of my Decay Vice palettes. And you'll find that there are quite a few limited edition Urban Decay palettes in my ranking today, because if there's something that Urban Decay used to do really, really well, it's jewel tones. So I'm gonna quickly show you these color stories so you can have a look. The first one I feel is probably the least jewel toned, but you can sort of see where I'm going with this, like these deeper shades, but this packaging is just horribly sticky by now. It's like that rubberized like NARS packaging that just, it sticks to everything, even itself. Yay. Yeah. And then we have the number 2, which is already getting a little bit more jewel tones. We get some greens in here, some bluey teals, some purples, some golds, silvers. This is where they were going in the right direction. The ones I feel that would fit the jewel tone bill the most are the Vice 3 and 4. This is the 3. Do you just see that? And then this is what the 4 looks like, which is a little bit more cool toned. So I feel that all 4 of these palettes still have merit in my collection. Yes, they're very old, but I did a video earlier this year where I put all of these on my face. It didn't give me pink eye. They're still good to go. And I just really like the color stories of these palettes, and they're just really unique. And I feel that in terms of like jewel tones, now that I look at everything that I've got going on here, if I just have these 4, I'm good to go. Number 14 is another discontinued limited edition Urban Decay palette. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it's the full spectrum. This was Urban Decay's Rainbow palette. It's not really a rainbow though. It does have rainbow shades, but especially this top row, very jewel toned. Nice and grungy, and then you get the pops of bright and the pops of something pastel. So I could have featured this palette in like every single ranking I've done so far, because I could have put it in the pastels palette ranking video I did. I could have put it in the rainbow palette video that I did. Maybe I actually did put it in there. I'm not entirely sure. But when I thought of jewel tone palettes, this is actually the one I wanted to feature as well, because I just feel that this isn't truly like a rainbow like brights, but it's more of a jewel tone palette in my brain. Number 13 then is the Juvia's Place Masquerade palette. The reason why this gets to go into the number 13 spot is quite possibly because I don't feel this color story is that great. So I like these vibrant jewel tone leaning sort of shimmers that you get. But all of these warm tones, I don't know what to do with this. My main issue with this palette is the fact that the shimmers in here are mainly cool toned, and then the mattes you get in here are mainly warm toned. Like, this is warm and this is cool. Like, how does this match? I don't get it. So that's my main issue with this palette, which is why it gets to go into the bottom half of this ranking for sure. However, these shimmers are just so stunning. They are just really, really lovely. Number 12 is another palette that I'm ranking at this position because the color story, you could argue, is not that jewel toned. So that's why it gets to go into the number 12 spot, and that would be the Sigma Enchanted palette. Now, with the quality of this palette, I also had some issues. I didn't feel it blended all that seamlessly in the mattes, and a lot of the colors in here I feel are quite repetitive from other palettes. But if we're talking jewel tones, you can get this gold, you get this like plummy amethyst kind of vibe, and then you just get this like greenish section. This side of the palette is like my favorite. Like these shades here, I love. This side of the palette I don't really go for, but if you just look at this, it kind of has that really nice reflection to it, which is why I thought it did deserve a place in this ranking. However, it's not a full jewel tone color story to me, and I think this palette would have been better if it had some more actual jewel tones. Now, I mentioned Urban Decay Vice palettes, and a palette that I feel is very reminiscent of the Urban Decay Vice 3 is the Urban Decay Borton Run. This is their more updated, warm-toned version of the Vice 3. I feel you get very similar shades. I've shown this side by side in several videos before, but you get those berries, you get the oranges, and then you get these murky, greeny blues. I feel it's like a jewel tone color story similar to the reason why I feel the Vice palettes can be a jewel tone color story. Again, is this as vibrant and jewel toned and lovely as it could have been? No. And I feel this entire row of like matte neutrals is quite superfluous. We get some like repeat shades and everything skews very warm toned, which is why I still like my Vice palettes more than this, because those are more cool toned heavy rather than warm toned heavy. But in terms of like jewel toned ranking that we're doing today, I think the Born to Run is a nicely curated palette that gives you lots of options, and I think it has a really stunning quality as well. That's why this gets to go into the number 11 spot. Moving in to the top 10 then, and again an Urban Decay palette that was discontinued in limited edition a couple years ago. The Heavy Metals. So this color story isn't fully jewel toned. I'm blocking the mirror because that's in the middle. You get jewel tones on this side, lovely, and then you get neutrals on this side. If this was an old jewel tone shimmer palette, I think I'd have liked it more. But I keep this around because it is a fun shimmer palette. That's sort of the reason why this gets to stay in my collection, because it has those fun pops of color. And if you have an all matte palette, or if you're just looking for a good shimmer, then this gives you the entire palette you could possibly need. So that's why it still has merit in my collection. I thought it had lovely quality, and that's why this gets to go into the number 10 spot. Number 9 is another one where I'm like, is it jewel toned or not? And that's what's actually on my face today, because I just finished playing with the It's Freakin Bats palette from Shroud and Battybean. They did this collab last year. It was a whole thing. I didn't get mine until April, and I was like, springtime is not the moment where I want to play around with these kind of shades. It just isn't. So I kept it around for the fall season and put it on my face. Now, is this as jewel toned again as it could have been? No, which is why this gets to go into the number 9 spot, because I feel that what I'm really missing in here is like a good purple to tie everything together. This is a purple, But on my fair skin tone, it looks black. It's what I'm wearing as liner today, and that's pretty much the only thing I can do with this shade. It also feels quite dry, and I had actually some issues blending some of the mattes in this palette. So it's not my favorite. I know Shroud Cosmetics can do lovely eyeshadows. They're gonna be mentioned in a little while as well, because they do some other things that I think are perfect for a jewel tone pick. This just isn't it. I also felt that this, because of those kind of shades, this shade and also this shade, those are like your transition shades and they are quite vibrant and bright. And I felt that also undertone wise, not all of these shades go together. You might think that this and this go together really well, but this is more mustard on me anyways, and then this is more green. So for me, these two shades just don't really go together as well, even though I put them together in the look. And it looks okay. It's just that as I was blending these, I felt that it just wasn't perfect. Now, if this was a grungy ranking, then I'm pretty sure this would rank a little higher. But in terms of jewel tones, I really would have wanted a more like amethyst royal purple to really tie some of these purples together. And I just feel there's a couple shades missing in this one. Then palette number 8. Juvia's Place Walhalla 2. Now the Walhalla 2 I was instantly drawn to because it has these like periwinkle blues going into like greeny teals. It's got a duochrome here, a multi-chrome there, and then you get a purple, like a glitter, and you get some other like shades that could make this more jewel toned for sure. The thing is, it's got a lot of pressed glitters. Like, look at how flaky this guy is. And I don't love pressed glitters. So I also wish that, for instance, a shade like this, that it wasn't a pressed glitter, and then I would have liked the palette even more. However, these 3 rows, I just kind of live for. And that's why this palette does have a place in my collection, you could say. And that's why this palette also deserves a spot in this ranking. But that's why it's not in the top 5 at all, because this, it just needed a bit more and a little less of the glitter. Number 7 then is this guy. And these are the 3 palettes that Sydney Grace and Temptalia released together. I feel that in my brain, all of these color stories are renditions of jewel tones, and since I have all 3, and they kind of make up a nice little family, I thought I could rank them in the number 7 spot as a good jewel tone pick. You can still get these. I haven't played with these yet though, so that's why, because I'm not sure what the quality will be like. I've only swatched these so far. I know I love Sydney Grace's eyeshadow formula, so that's why this does go very high on the list, but not quite into the top 5, because I feel that I would first have to play with these before I can really give them a place that high. Let me show you what these look like real quickly in case you haven't seen these. This is my favorite. This is the Quintessence. And this is like your murky jewel tones. This is the On the Horizon, and this is more muted. This is perhaps the least jewel toned one. And then this is Radiant Reflection, and this is the one where I really drive my point home, I hope, because this is lovely jewel tones. You get the greens, you get the blues, you get something purple, you get a gold, and then you get these like ruby kind of shades. So this is lovely. I bought 2 of these, which are the On the Horizon, and this one, Radiant Reflection, in the light version, and then Quintessence in the deep, because I felt that those taupes that were in the deep version were much more up my street than the very light grays they put in the light version. Because yes, that's right, these Sydney Grace Temptalia palettes come in a light and in a deep version, giving you slightly different mattes to act as transitions. So you can decide based on your skin tone or your makeup preferences what you want to go for. And the deep version of the Quintessence had an extra taupe and a teal, which are my 2 favorite shades. So that's why I was like, I don't mind it if they're a bit deep. I can make them work with a light hand and a fluffy brush. And then number 6, right before we head into the top 5, we've got the After Dark palette from Urban Decay. Now this is a palette I never see a lot of people featuring on their channels. I very randomly bought this off of like the UK Urban Decay website when this launched. This was limited edition years ago, and this was promoted as the jewel toned, grungier version of the Electric palette, which is very vibrant, bright, neon-y kind of shades. Especially this bottom row. It's perfection. It's got a really lovely formula. It's all shimmers though, and it's all the same level of shimmer, so this is definitely like a palette I sometimes pull in if I just want to do like one shade. It has fringe, which is like one of my favorite teal eyeshadows. And then you just get a navy, and you get the purple, and then you get this brown green shade, and then you just get some more like jewelry tones in the top row as well. So that's why I really like this palette. I really like that I have this, and that's why it gets to go so high up on the list. But yeah, this you would be very hard pressed to find, because this was a very limited release, and I even barely got my hands on this. And then we're moving into the top 5, and the top 5 are truly my all-time favorites, and only 2 of these are still for sale. So I do apologize, as I mentioned in my intro, I don't want to focus just on things you can still buy though. But number 5 is one you can't get. Subculture, ABH. Lots of controversy with this one, and I love this in the fall time because it is very sort of like turning leaves kind of colors. I think this is lovely. I love pairing this with multi-chrome shimmers from indie brands. I've got a couple from Divina that have these like really nice murky shifts, and this just goes with it perfectly. And this is more like muted jewel tones because everything is matte, so it's not like vibrant jewel tones at all. But I love, 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 love how these shades perform. I'm someone who doesn't mind this formula at all. I actually go out of my way to make it work because I love these shades so, so much. For me, the most difficult shade to work with is Axis, which is this teal, and I just told you how much I like teals. So that's a palette, that's a shade that I just, whenever I put it on, I just love it. And I feel actually that it's better than the teal I've got going on today, which is from the It's Freakin' Bat. So Axis is still one of my favorite teals in my collection. Then my number 4 pick is one you can still buy. However, depending on where you live, this may be a little bit difficult to buy because this brand is only for sale, I think, through Ulta in the US. I'm not sure if they still do this brand, and via the official website, and that's Persona Cosmetics. So if you're in the EU like I am, it's going to be a little difficult to buy. However, I bought the Identity 1 and this guy, the Identity 2, together in a bundle, and that gave me free shipping, so that was good. However, I bought these before we had to pay customs over every single order. But yeah, this is what it looks like. It's gorgeous. However, I like the one just a little bit better because it's neutrals, but these, like this section here, with the purple, and then this shade as well, the green, the gold, and then these 2 shimmers as well. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous jewel tone color story. The shimmers in here are really vibrant and really, really bright. However, I do think that I don't really get the mattes in here that I would want, because it's got a black, which I don't love. And then this shade is a little too deep for me to work in the crease. And then this shade is a little too light for me to really work in the crease with the kind of shades I've got going on here. And this is simply too warm toned. So I wish I got something that was in between these 2, just to make sure I have something to tie everything together. So right now what I tend to do is that I sort of like blend these 2 together, and that works. But I don't want to put that much effort into doing my makeup really, so that's why this gets to go into the number 4 spot, because I do really like the quality. I love the shades you get in here. It's just that there's a few shades missing to really make this perfect. Number 3 is one you can no longer buy. I'm sorry. I'm not sure, this is never gonna come back. Zoeva IC palette. Another one, like the Urban Decay After Dark, that nobody talks about. I've never seen a lot of people feature this on, like, even if they have Zoeva palettes, this is not one you typically see. But these 5 shades, it's stunning. You get this duochromy pink with a blue shift, which is really stunning. Also, this white it's got a pink shift. I mean, I call Zoeva the brand with the hidden duochromes. A lot of their palettes, especially that came out around the same time as this guy, had 1 or 2 duochromes that nobody was talking about. But yeah, this, especially this with like some of the purples, is really, really stunning. This shade is a little light as a transition, I'm not gonna lie, and it's like the only matte you get in the entire palette because everything in here has shimmer, which is, again, one of the reasons why I think nobody talks about this or even bought it. But this section here, if you have this, then you just have a jewel tone palette that can see through everything. No longer for sale though. I'm terribly sorry. And then next up, number 2, I already mentioned that Shroud Cosmetics was going to make another appearance. The Arcana is in my number 2 spot. This is the grungy dual tone palette of my dreams. This does have that taupe that I want as a transition. Again, is it perfect though? Not entirely, because I want this shade to be a dark brown, because now the deepest shade you get is this green, and I just feel that this side is lacking some depth. So it's not as versatile as I'd like it to, but you get your matte transition for the warm tone section, you get your matte transition for the cool tone section, you get a ruby, you get a gold, you get a really lovely like emerald foresty green, you get the blue, and then this really nice murky purpley shade. It's stunning. It's one of the best jewel tone palettes, and guess what? This is still for sale. I believe it's in stock. You could buy this, but again, Shroud Cosmetics is a US indie brand, so depending on where you live in the world, this may be pretty expensive to buy. And this is why I'm saying why we need more jewel tone palettes, because there just aren't that many around. And if you want to buy good ones, it's only like US indie brands that currently do them. Let's go. What's up with that? But my number 1 pick, and I was like, should I put the Arcana in the number 1 spot because you can still get it or not? No, I was like, no, I need to truly go with my favorite. And that would be the Angelica Nugvis Club Nebula palette. And the reason why I put this in my number 1 spot is because I feel it's a little bit more unique. The Arcana is more grungy neutral leaning, whereas this is just grungy jewel tones. That's all you're getting, especially with these mattes. This teal is lovely. Like, this top row is what I would have wanted my freaking bats to do. And it just kind of didn't deliver. So this acid green shade I like a lot better than the chartreuse that I get in the It's Freakin' Bats. You get something minty, you get a lovely like array of shimmers. There's only there's 6 shimmers in here, but I feel that those shimmers really go really well with those different like other shades that you've got going on. This shade Astro, I've mentioned it before, it really ties everything together. You get some jewel tones in here as well. This taupe is lovely, these mauve plums are lovely, and then this, yes, it's warm toned, and I don't love warm tones. Those are warm tones that I do like. So that's why this palette has not a single dot. I like every shade, and I feel the color story is a full jewel tone, and that's why it had to go into the number 1 spot. Please, Kaleidos, bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back, please. Pretty please, because this is my favorite jewel tone palette. So there you have it. That is my ranking of my jewel toned eyeshadow palettes. I hope you learned something today about what I consider could be a jewel tone palette. Like I mentioned, I'm not entirely sure everything I showed you today could be a jewel tone palette, and I feel I also left out palettes thinking about it again, whereas like that could have been a jewel tone palette, which is why I think I just need to soldier on and do a grungy ranking as well, because I think a lot of grungy color stories could have gone into this. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, this is just what I have selected for you today. These are my jewel tone palettes that I've ranked, and the Club Nebula is my favorite. I can't really do anything else about it. So thank you very much for watching today's video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week, so hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye.